At 2026 PGA Championship, one unexpected comment during the champions' dinner lit a fire under Martin Kaymer before he even hit his opening tee shot. The former world number 1 and 2-time major champion arrived at Aronimink Golf Club looking to prove he could still compete at the highest level. Instead of encouragement, however, he received a strange question from a PGA of America official that instantly became motivation for the week. Kaymer, who now competes on LIV Golf, attended the traditional champions' dinner reserved for former PGA Championship winners. As the 2010 champion, the German golfer had every reason to be there. But according to Kaymer, the interaction that unfolded beside him at the dinner table caught him completely off guard. Speaking to reporters later in the week, Kaymer revealed that a representative from the PGA of America asked him whether he was even participating in the tournament. The question stunned him. "On Tuesday evening, we had the champions' dinner, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me from the PGA of America, and he asked me if I still play," Kaymer explained. "And I said, 'What do you mean?' He said, 'Well, are you playing this week?' And I said, 'Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm not flying from Europe to here to have a New York strip with you guys. Of course I'm playing.'" The response immediately spread across the golf world because it perfectly captured Kaymer's frustration. Even though he is a major champion with an accomplished resume, there is a growing perception among some fans and officials that LIV golf players have drifted away from elite competitive relevance. Kaymer's sharp comeback made it clear that he had no intention of being treated like a ceremonial guest or retired legend. For the 41-year-old German, this trip to Pennsylvania was about competition, not nostalgia. Kaymer may not be the dominant force he once was, but his accomplishments remain significant. He captured the 2010 PGA Championship in dramatic fashion before later winning the 2014 US Open in dominant style. During his peak years, he rose to world number 1 and established himself as one of Europe's premier golfers. However, the years since then have been difficult. Injuries, inconsistent form, and the changing landscape of professional golf pushed Kaymer away from the spotlight. Since joining LIV Golf, he has largely stayed out of mainstream PGA Tour conversations, only resurfacing during major championships. Because of that reduced visibility, the question from the official may have reflected how disconnected some people have become from his current career. But if the official intended the remark casually, Kaymer clearly did not take it that way. Instead, he used it as fuel. Only a day after the awkward dinner interaction, Kaymer delivered one of his strongest major championship rounds in years. He opened the tournament with a composed 3 under 67 at Aronimink Golf Club, placing himself near the top of the leaderboard after the first round. More importantly, he looked comfortable. Kaymer avoided costly mistakes, controlled his ball flight effectively, and displayed the calm putting touch that once made him one of the best pressure players in the world. It was the type of performance that reminded golf fans exactly why he owns 2 major championships. The timing of the round made the story even more compelling. After being indirectly questioned about whether he still belonged in the field, Kaymer answered in the best way possible, with his scorecard. His opening round immediately silenced criticism and transformed the champions' dinner moment into one of the tournament's most talked about storylines. There was also another important factor behind his strong start. Kaymer admitted that his body has recently started feeling healthier after years of physical struggles. Injuries have played a major role in his decline over the last several seasons, limiting both his consistency and confidence. But this week at Aronimink, he suggested that things finally feel different. That renewed physical comfort appears to have restored some belief in his game. Players often talk about needing a course that fits their eye, and Kaymer seems to feel exactly that way about Aronimink Golf Club. The layout suits his preferred shot shapes and allows him to rely on strategy rather than overpowering distance. When experienced players regain confidence in both their body and course setup, dangerous performances can suddenly emerge. For Kaymer, this week could represent a rare opportunity to revive his major championship relevance. Making the cut alone would be a meaningful achievement considering his recent record. Since 2018, Kaymer has rarely survived into weekend play at majors. A strong finish at the PGA Championship would therefore signal much more than a temporary hot streak. It would suggest that he still possesses the ability to compete under golf's brightest lights. Yet while Kaymer battles for the Wanamaker Trophy, another issue continues to hover over his future. The uncertainty surrounding LIV Golf has become increasingly difficult for players to ignore. Back in late 2025, Kaymer openly expressed his desire to remain with LIV Golf long-term. He appeared satisfied with the league and hoped to secure another multi-year contract extension. At the time, the Saudi-backed circuit still projected financial stability and expansion plans. Kaymer even admitted he hoped to continue competing there for at least 5 more years. "I continue playing on LIV at least, hopefully, for the next 5 years, he previously explained in an interview with Bunkered. "That's my goal, that's my hope, but I think it's difficult to get a contract for 5 years. Also, I'm 40 years old. I need a contract that I feel comfortable with." At that moment, the comments sounded optimistic. But only months later, the landscape around LIV Golf appears far less secure. Questions surrounding financial backing and long-term sustainability have created uncertainty for many players tied to the league. Reports suggesting reduced support from Saudi Arabia's public investment fund have intensified speculation about what happens next. That uncertainty puts veterans like Kaymer in a particularly difficult position. Unlike younger stars who may still have decades ahead of them, Kaymer is trying to maximize the remaining years of his professional career. Stability matters. Competitive opportunities matter. Financial security matters. Any disruption to LIV Golf's structure could dramatically affect the future plans of players nearing the later stages of their careers. So while Kaymer is focused on competing at Aronimink this week, it is impossible to ignore the broader concerns surrounding his future. On one side, he is trying to rediscover the form that once made him one of golf's elite players. On the other, he must navigate an uncertain professional landscape that continues to evolve rapidly. Still, none of those distractions appeared to affect him during the opening round. Instead, Kaymer looked focused, motivated, and energized, perhaps more than he has in years. Ironically, the dismissive question at the Champions Dinner may have helped create exactly that mindset. Professional athletes often search for small motivational edges, especially after years away from the spotlight. For Kaymer, being asked whether he was even playing in the tournament became deeply personal. It challenged both his relevance and identity as a competitor. His reaction showed that the fire still burns. And if his first-round performance is any indication, Martin Kaymer is not at Aronimink merely to relive old memories. He is there to compete, contend, and remind the golf world that major champions do not simply disappear.